The autumn wind rustled the fallen leaves across the wooden platform of Cedar Creek Station as Isabella Martinez sat on a worn bench, clutching a crumpled letter in her trembling hands. At 24, she had traveled from Philadelphia to this small frontier town in Colorado with her heart full of hope and all her worldly belongings packed into one battered travel bag. But the letter she held carried news that shattered everything she had believed about her future. "Miss Martinez, you are not quite what we expected," the letter from the man she was supposed to marry began. "Upon your arrival, it became clear that you are of Mexican descent, a fact that was never mentioned in our correspondence. Therefore, the arrangement is canceled, and your return to Philadelphia has been arranged on tomorrow's train." Isabella had spent all her savings on the journey west, answering a mail-order bride advertisement placed by a rancher who claimed he wanted a loving wife and a mother for his orphaned children. Now she had learned that her heritage, something she had never thought necessary to mention because it had nothing to do with her ability to love, had made her unacceptable to the man who had promised her a new life. Sitting in the golden evening light, holding back tears and wondering how she would survive the return journey with no money and nowhere to go, Isabella felt a small presence beside her. A girl of about 5 cautiously approached the bench with the kind of childish curiosity that is both frightened and confused, yet somehow clearly aware of another person's sadness. The child had pale braids and wore a blue dress that looked homemade but carefully kept. In her arms, she held a brown teddy bear that was obviously deeply loved, its fur worn in places from countless embraces. "Are you waiting for the train too?" the girl asked, settling beside Isabella without an invitation. Isabella wiped her eyes and managed to smile. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm waiting for tomorrow's train. Are you going somewhere?" "No, I live here," the girl replied matter-of-factly. "My papa is talking to the station master about supplies for our ranch. I'm supposed to wait here, but I saw that you were sad, and Mama always said we should check on people who look sad." Something in the way she said "Mama always said" told Isabella that the girl was speaking of someone who was no longer there. "What is your name, sweetheart?" Isabella asked. "I'm Lucy Morrison, and this is my bear, Mr. Button." "What is your name?" "Isabella." "It is very nice to meet you, Lucy." Lucy studied Isabella's face with the serious attention children give to adults who treat them as equals. "Why are you sad, Miss Isabella? Did someone hurt your feelings?" Isabella felt fresh tears rising again as she tried to explain an adult disappointment to a child. "I came here thinking someone wanted me to be part of his family, but it turned out he changed his mind." "That is very wrong," Lucy said with the absolute moral clarity of childhood. "Papa says that if you promise something to someone, you must keep your word, especially if it is important." "Your papa sounds like a wise man," Isabella replied. "He is the best papa in the whole world," Lucy said with fierce loyalty. "But sometimes he gets lonely. I know because at night he looks out the window when he thinks I am asleep, and he sighs very deeply many times." Without realizing it, Isabella found herself drawn into a warm conversation with the solemn little girl. Lucy spoke with the kind of insight that often comes to children who have experienced loss too early. They talked about Lucy's life on the ranch, her memories of her mother, and how her father tried to be both mother and father to her at once. "Papa tries to braid my hair the way Mama did," Lucy confessed, "but it never looks as pretty. And he doesn't know the songs Mama used to sing when I was afraid of thunder." As they spoke, Isabella noticed a man walking from the station building. He was tall and lean, dressed in work clothes and a cowboy hat, moving with the purpose of someone used to carrying responsibility. When he saw Lucy talking to a stranger, his steps quickened slightly, though his expression showed not alarm but concern. "Lucy, there you are," he said as he reached the bench. "I hope you are not bothering this lady too much." "She is not bothering me at all," Isabella assured him, standing politely. "Lucy is a wonderful conversationalist. I am Isabella Martinez." The man removed his hat, revealing dark hair and eyes that held the same sadness Isabella had heard in Lucy's description of his loneliness. "Daniel Morrison, Lucy's father." "Forgive her chatter. She does not often get the chance to speak with new people." "Papa," Lucy said, tugging at his jacket, "Miss Isabella is sad because someone broke a promise. They said they wanted her to be part of their family, and then they changed their mind and acted rudely." Daniel looked more closely at Isabella, noticing her simple dress, her lonely travel bag, and the way she held herself with dignity despite the obvious shock she had endured. "I am sorry to hear that, Miss Martinez. Are you stranded here?" Isabella felt her cheeks grow warm as she admitted her situation. "I came here to marry a man who had placed an advertisement for a wife. When I arrived, he decided I was not suitable for him and arranged for me to return to Philadelphia tomorrow." Daniel's expression darkened. What kind of man invites a woman to travel across the country and then rejects her like that? It is unforgivable. "Papa," Lucy said softly, "maybe Miss Isabella could stay with us. Our house is big, and she knows how to braid hair properly, and she has a pretty voice for songs." "Lucy," Daniel said gently, "that is not how things work." But Isabella could see in his eyes that he was not entirely opposed to his daughter's suggestion. In the few minutes they had spoken, she had sensed in him the very loneliness Lucy had described, the particular exhaustion of a parent trying to be everything for a child who needed more than one person could give. "Mr. Morrison," Isabella said carefully, "I do not wish to impose on your kindness, but I am in a difficult position. I have no money for lodging tonight, and barely enough for food on the journey back east. If I could work for a few days to earn enough for a proper trip home, I would be deeply grateful." Daniel studied her face, seeing honesty there, along with the quiet desperation of someone who had almost no options left. "Miss Martinez, you could certainly help at the ranch. Lucy is right. The house is large, and there is more work than I can keep up with while caring for her properly." Lucy clapped her hands with delight. "So Miss Isabella can stay with us for a few days? Until she decides what she wants to do next," Daniel added cautiously. As they walked toward Daniel's wagon, Lucy slipped her small hand into Isabella's and said quietly, "Miss Isabella, every night I prayed that God would send someone who could be my mama. Do you think maybe you did not get on the wrong train, and that it was part of God's plan?" Isabella felt her heart tighten at the childlike faith in the girl's voice. "Lucy, I do not know what God's plans are, but I do know that meeting you has been the best part of a very difficult day." 3 weeks later, Isabella still had not boarded the train back to Philadelphia. What had begun as a temporary arrangement had turned into something none of them had expected. Isabella proved indispensable at the ranch, not only with household duties, but also with the accounts and correspondence that Daniel had struggled to manage alone. More importantly, Lucy blossomed under the attention of someone who understood the special needs of a little girl who had lost her mother. "Isabella," Daniel said one evening as they sat on the porch watching Lucy play in the yard with her bear, "I need to ask you something important." Isabella looked at him expectantly, her heart beginning to beat faster at the seriousness in his voice. "I know you came here intending to marry a man who proved himself unworthy of your trust," Daniel continued. "I know that Lucy and I are not the life you imagined for yourself. But I must ask whether you would consider staying forever, not as hired help, but as my wife and Lucy's mother." Isabella felt tears gather in her eyes as she understood what he was asking of her. "I know it is bold," Daniel added quickly, "and I know we have known each other only a few weeks. But Lucy has never been happier, and I find myself waking each morning hoping that today will not be the day you decide to leave us." Before Isabella could answer, Lucy ran onto the porch, her face flushed from playing. "Miss Isabella, I was thinking about what you said about God's plans, and I have a question." "What is it, sweetheart?" Lucy climbed into Isabella's lap and whispered into her ear loudly enough for Daniel to hear. "Can you be my mama forever? Because I love you, and Papa loves you too, even though he is too shy to say it properly." Isabella looked at the little girl who had become the daughter of her heart, then at Daniel, whose eyes held the question he was afraid to ask directly. "Lucy," Isabella said softly, "I cannot imagine anything that would make me happier than being your mama forever." 6 months later, as Isabella Morrison stood in the kitchen of their ranch home teaching Lucy how to make the bread that had become the girl's favorite dish, she reflected on the road that had led her to this unexpected happiness. The man who had rejected her had unknowingly guided her toward the family she had been meant to find. "Mama Isabella," Lucy said, using the name that had naturally settled into place over those months. "Do you think there are other ladies sitting on station benches right now, waiting for God to show them where they belong?" Isabella smiled, remembering her own moment of despair, the moment that had led to the greatest joy of her life. "I think there are, sweetheart. Sometimes the most beautiful destinations are the ones we never planned to visit. Sometimes love finds us not when we are searching for it, but when we have completely lost hope. And sometimes the most precious families are created not by blood or expectations, but by the simple understanding that we have found the people we were always meant to love.